3 terrifying Airbnb horror stories. We all need a break sometimes, right? A chance to escape, to find a cozy little nest far from home. That's the promise of Airbnb, isn't it? But what happens when that promise turns into a threat? When the place you seek refuge becomes a den of fear? Airbnbs are supposed to be cozy, personal, and safe, but sometimes they're the perfect setting for a nightmare. These 3 true Airbnb horror stories are real accounts from people who checked in and were lucky to check out. Let's get into it. Picture this, a secluded cabin nestled deep in the heart of Asheville, North Carolina. It's 2019 and a young couple, Jake and Melissa, are on a romantic getaway. They crave peace, they crave solitude, and this rustic cabin promises just that. The crackling fireplace, the exposed wooden beams, the scent of pine needles in the air. It's the perfect picture of idyllic bliss. The first night passes without a hitch. Laughter, whispers, the gentle crackle of the fire, it lulls them into a false sense of security. But the second night? The second night is when things take a sinister turn. Melissa, ever observant, notices something amiss. There, near the fireplace, stands a tall, imposing bookshelf, and on the wooden floor beneath it she sees them, long, deep scrape marks. Someone had moved this bookshelf recently. Now, curiosity, as they say, killed the cat. But for Jake and Melissa, it unearthed something far more unsettling. Jake gives the bookshelf a tentative tug. It creaks open, revealing a hidden doorway, a secret passage concealed within the cabin's walls. This wasn't in the listing. A wave of unease washes over them, but curiosity outweighs fear. They have to see what lies beyond. Behind the bookshelf, a narrow hallway stretches into darkness, leading to a small, windowless room. The air grows heavy, thick with an oppressive silence. There's no furniture save for a solitary mattress on the floor, stained and uninviting. And then they see it. Mounted in the corner, its red light blinking ominously is a camera pointed directly at the mattress. The blood drains from their faces. Jake, his hands trembling, unplugs the camera and removes the SD card. They huddle together, their hearts pounding in unison as they connect the card to their laptop. What they see sends chills down their spines. Video footage of themselves sleeping soundly in the cabin's bedroom. But that's not the worst part. The camera angles. They're all wrong. Impossible angles, as if the camera had been inside the room with them. They frantically search their memories, their eyes scanning every inch of the bedroom in the footage. There was no camera. There couldn't have been. Then, as the footage nears its end, the final frame reveals a chilling sight. A shadowy figure shrouded in darkness approaching the camera. And on its back, clearly visible even in the grainy footage, is Jake's hoodie. A hoodie he thought he packed but never found. Panic sets in. They scramble out of the cabin, fleeing into the night, the image of that final frame seared into their minds. Every rustle of leaves, every creak of a branch sends shivers down their spines. They report the host to Airbnb, their voices trembling as they recount the horrifying discovery. The police are called, but the investigation leads nowhere. The listing is removed, the host vanishes into thin air, leaving behind more questions than answers. And Jake and Melissa? They're left with a chilling reminder that some secrets are best left buried and some doors should never be opened. Chapter 2: The Basement Door. Our next story takes us to Salem, Massachusetts, a town steeped in history and shrouded in whispers of the supernatural. In 2022, Emily, a woman in her early 30s, decides to treat herself to a solo trip, drawn to Salem's enigmatic charm. She finds the perfect Airbnb, a beautifully renovated colonial-style home, exuding an air of quiet elegance. The host isn't on site, which Emily appreciates. She's looking forward to some much-needed solitude, some time to reconnect with herself. The first day is idyllic. Emily explores the town's historic streets, indulging in its spooky charm. But as night falls, a creeping sense of unease begins to settle over the house. She starts hearing noises, soft, almost imperceptible footsteps beneath the floorboards. The sound of someone pacing slowly, deliberately, just beneath her feet. She tries to rationalize it, telling herself it's just the old house settling. But deep down, a seed of doubt has been planted. Then, one evening, she notices something strange. A door in the hallway, a door that had always been firmly locked, is now slightly ajar. A sliver of darkness peeks through the gap, beckoning her closer. Curiosity, mixed with a growing sense of dread, compels her to investigate. Armed with nothing but her phone's flashlight, Emily slowly pushes the door open. It creaks loudly as if disturbed after a long slumber. Behind it, a set of stairs descends into darkness. A hidden basement, concealed from the world above. The air grows colder, the silence more oppressive. Taking a deep breath, Emily cautiously makes her way down the stairs, her heart pounding in her chest. The flashlight beam dances across the damp stone walls, revealing glimpses of forgotten objects, shadows that seem to writhe and contort in the flickering light. Halfway down the stairs, she stops dead in her tracks, her blood turning to ice. In the corner of the basement, illuminated by her trembling flashlight beam, is a makeshift living space. A cot, its sheets in disarray. A microwave, its door slightly ajar. Trash bags piled in the corner, emanating a sour, putrid smell. Someone had been living here. Someone had been watching her. Panic surges through her veins. She stumbles back up the stairs, her mind racing. She slams the basement door shut, the sound echoing through the silent house. Every creak, every groan of the old house now seems amplified, laced with menace. She spends a sleepless night huddled in the living room, every nerve on high alert, the image of that hidden basement seared into her mind. Before the sun rises, Emily flees the house. But before she leaves, she sets up her phone to record the hallway, focusing on the basement door. Days later, back in the safety of her own home, Emily finally gathers the courage to watch the footage, and what she sees chills her to the bone. Around 3 a.m., the basement door slowly creaks open. The hallway is shrouded in darkness, but in the faint light filtering in from the streetlights outside, she can see it. A man's hand, reaching out from the darkness, slowly, deliberately wrapping around the doorframe. Then, just as slowly, it retreats back into the shadows. The man is never found. The host, when contacted by a terrified Emily, denies any knowledge of the basement dwelling, any knowledge of the mysterious hand reaching out from the darkness. Emily shares her story on Reddit, desperately seeking answers, seeking solace in shared fear. But within hours, her post is taken down. The experience leaves an indelible mark on Emily's psyche. Even now, she can't shake the feeling of being watched, of unseen eyes peering at her from the shadows. And late at night, when the world is quiet, she can still hear it. The slow creak of a door, the soft shuffle of footsteps just beneath the floorboards. Chapter 3. Our final story takes us on a solitary road trip across the vast expanse of the Nevada desert. Daniel, our protagonist, is seeking solace in the open road, in the ever-changing landscapes that stretch out before him. It's late, he's tired, and he just needs a place to rest his head for the night. He stumbles upon a listing on Airbnb, a guest house behind a larger property, secluded, quiet, and most importantly, available. The check-in process is simple, contactless. The host sends him a brief message. "Let me know if you need anything. Enjoy your stay." The message seems innocuous enough, but there's something about the impersonal tone, the lack of warmth that sets Daniel slightly on edge. He arrives at the guest house around 10 p.m., his headlights cutting through the thick darkness that blankets the desert. The guest house is small, Spartan but clean. He throws his bag on the floor, cracks open a beer, and heads to the fridge, intending to grab another, and that's when he sees it. Taped to the inside of the fridge door, staring back at him with a chilling familiarity, is a photograph. His photograph. Taken from his Instagram profile. Printed out and placed deliberately within this isolated guest house in the middle of nowhere. A wave of nausea washes over him. His mind races, trying to make sense of the impossible. Was it a prank? A bizarre coincidence? But deep down, a primal fear begins to stir within him. This was no joke. This was something far more sinister. As if to confirm his worst fears, he notices an envelope on the table, his name scrawled across the front in neat, precise handwriting. His hands trembling, he opens the envelope and spills its contents onto the table. Gas station receipts. Dated from earlier in his trip from different states, hundreds of miles apart. Receipts that he knew he hadn't discarded. Receipts that he always kept tucked away in his wallet. He tries to rationalize it, to convince himself that there's a logical explanation. But the evidence is right there in front of him, staring him in the face. Someone had been following him. Someone had been collecting mementos of his journey, leaving them behind like breadcrumbs in a twisted game of cat and mouse. He tries texting the host, his fingers flying across the keyboard, but the messages remain unanswered, met with an eerie silence. Night falls, enveloping the desert in an oppressive darkness. Daniel sits huddled in the corner of the guest house, his back pressed against the wall, his eyes darting to the windows, the door, every shadow, every creak and groan of the house amplified in the silence. Then, he hears it. The crunch of gravel outside. Footsteps approaching the guest house. Slowly, cautiously, he peeks through the curtain, his heart pounding in his chest. Standing in the yard, illuminated by the pale moonlight, is a figure. A man, holding a flashlight, its beam aimed directly at the window, directly at Daniel. He's just standing there, unmoving, watching. Terror grips Daniel's throat. He fumbles for his phone, his hands shaking so violently that he can barely dial 911. He whispers his location to the operator, his voice trembling with fear. Every second feels like an eternity as he waits for the police to arrive, the image of the man in the yard seared into his mind. By the time the police arrive, the man is gone, vanished without a trace, swallowed by the desert night. The police search the property, but their efforts prove futile. The host is nowhere to be found. The main house, when Daniel cautiously approaches it, appears abandoned. Boarded up windows, overgrown weeds, an eerie silence hanging heavy in the air. It's as if the place has been deserted for years. Shaken to his core, Daniel packs his bags and flees. He drives through the night, the headlights of his car cutting through the darkness, the vast emptiness of the desert offering him little comfort. He can't shake the feeling of being watched, of unseen eyes following his every move. 2 weeks later, back in the supposed safety of his own apartment, a letter arrives. No return address, just his name and address written in that same neat, precise handwriting. Inside, a single line, chilling in its simplicity. See you next time. The next time you book an Airbnb, remember these stories. Remember that behind the carefully curated photos and glowing reviews, there might be something sinister lurking beneath the surface. Airbnb is supposed to feel like home, but sometimes it hides something far worse than creaky walls or bad Wi-Fi. Got a horror story of your own? Drop it in the comments, and maybe we'll feature it in a future video. Like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. We're uploading 30 days of true horror stories. Until next time, stay aware, stay safe, stay unhinged.